Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong opposition to this deeply flawed Republican budget resolution. When we considered this resolution in July, Democrats offered 28 amendments. The amendments that we offered were meant to help set a course away from the disastrous path that the Republican majority and the Trump administration are steering us down. We offered amendments on a broad range of issues important to our communities and our families. These included protecting our communities from the effects of climate change, preserving health care, investing in public health, research and diplomacy, and investing in our nation's workforce and infrastructure. Not surprisingly, not a single one of those made it through. Instead, we have this resolution, a love letter to millionaires, billionaires, and corporations, and nothing but a manifesto of contempt for America's working families. Mr. Speaker, the resolution we will be asked to vote on is based on the same faulty assumptions as the bill that came through committee. These included assuming that the repeal of the Affordable Care Act happened, which it did not, and an unrealistic economic growth of 3%. The Republican budget resolution does little but hurt millions of American families in order to fast-track tax cuts for millionaires, billionaires, and corporations. In addition, after all the Republican talk of deficit reduction, this cruel budget resolution massively increases the federal debt by $2.4 trillion over the next 10 years and $3.2 trillion in the 10 years after. Where does putting the interests of corporations and the wealthiest ahead of working families get us? Well, we've seen where this ends. Earlier this summer, the Republican-dominated Kansas legislature was forced to roll back its 2012 tax cuts. In fact, a recent Brookings Institution analysis found that the tax cuts resulted in, and I'm quoting, an anemic level of revenues which led to ballooning shortfalls, causing significant cutbacks in vital programs such as Medicaid, education, temporary assistance for needy families, court funding, and infrastructure.
Yield the gentlelady another minute.
Gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman. This Republican budget resolution will lead us into that same hole, yet we know that this will only give Republicans license to call for further cuts to critical programs like Medicare, Social Security, and education. And we know who wins under this budget resolution. It paves the way for a Republican tax proposal that gives a huge tax cut to the wealthiest in our country. Consider this. 80% of the Republican tax cut goes to the top 1% by 2027. The average tax cut for the top 1% would be $207,000, and for millionaires, the tax cut would provide $230,000 a year. 42 million middle-class households would face a tax increase, including those people earning between $50,000 and $150,000. Mr. Speaker, this budget resolution is unfair to working families and to our country's future. I urge my colleagues to vote against this resolution. Let's work together on a moral budget blueprint that supports all Americans. I yield back.